bastard! You killed my son! You killed my son! Hello, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews. My name is Alyssa, and this is my review for Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. I hope you enjoyed my dramatic reenactment of You Klingon Bastard. Anyways, this is part of a series of videos in which I review each of the original 6 Star Trek films 1 month at a time, and this month I am doing Star Trek III, The Search for Spock. I will give a quick little overview of the film, and then I'm going to go through scene by scene the whole movie, and then at the end I will give my rating for the film out of 10. So, I'm sure you've heard the phrase the odd number Trek films. So the odd number Star Trek films are supposedly all the bad ones. And I've always resented the fact that Star Trek 3 gets lumped in with Motion Picture and Star Trek 5. Now granted, when it's all said and done, after I've rewatched 4 and 6, I probably will say that Star Trek 3 is in 4th place. It's behind all of the even-numbered films. That's what I've thought in the past, anyways. However, to lump it together with Motion Picture and Star Trek 5, very, very bad films, I think is entirely unfair. I think it is about 1,000,000 times better than Star Trek the Motion Picture and Star Trek 5 combined. It is way better than both of those films combined. I think it is unfair to say that it is that bad. Now, it has its issues, and it is basically just one big 2-hour excuse to bring Spock back to life. But you know what? It's one big long 2-hour excuse to bring Spock back to life that I really enjoy. Like, I always have fun with this film, and I really had fun with the rewatch that I just did. So now with that all said, let's go ahead and jump in. I'm going to go through scene by scene, starting with the very, very beginning, where we start with this little black and white square of the end of Star Trek II, you know, in case you forgot how that ended, you know, catching you up, needs the mini, blah, 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 you know, ship out of danger, yeah, blah, 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 all that stuff. Then we get the full scene of the funeral, or Kirk's speech at the funeral anyways. And I forgot to mention this in my Star Trek II review. I don't think I mentioned this, but it always bothers me that he goes, out of all the souls I've ever encountered, his was the most human. So first of all, why are you insulting Spock like that? He would take an insult to that if he were alive. He didn't like to be referred to as human. Secondly, really? Out of all the souls you've met, McCoy, Scotty, Uhura, Spock is the most human? Yeah, you might want to relook at that. I don't think that's pretty accurate. So this always struck me as an odd scene. Anyways, that's actually from Star Trek II. I don't think I ever talked about that when I did my Star Trek II review. So then we get into Leonard Nimoy doing the old intro of the original series, the whole space is the final frontier, and we get the debut of the phrase ongoing mission instead of a 5-year mission, which would also get used in the Next Generation. However, we do not yet get the debut of Where No One Has Gone Before. That would come in the Next Generation, I believe. Here it's still Where No Man Has Gone Before. And then we get what I would say the best opening credits yet. Through the first 3 films. It just keeps getting better and better. I love how they go through the clouds, through the Genesis planet, and then eventually go out into space. Come a long way from the boring black screen of the motion picture. All right, so then we jump into the film proper, and we pick up where we left off from Star Trek 2, kind of. And one aspect we are picking up right after Star Trek 2, as the ship still has all the burn marks from it. Looks like they're just fresh out of the battle with Khan. Nobody has talked to McCoy yet, and so nobody's found out about the remember thing. So they're definitely on their way straight back from that battle with Khan. And yet, how did David and Saavik have time to transfer to the Grissom? When did that happen? It seems like Saavik has been there for months. She seems like an established member of that crew. It's very strange to me. That seems like that was months ago, but also just yesterday. I don't know. It's out of sync. Maybe there's something screwy going on with the timeline. I don't know. Not that big of a deal. Anyway, on the way back to Starfleet, we also get a Scotty line that I had forgotten all about. So Kirk asks Scotty, like, how long is it going to take to refit the Enterprise once we get back to Starfleet? And Scotty goes, oh, it'll take 2 weeks, but I'll tell you 8 weeks. And Kirk was like, oh, do you always multiply your estimates by a factor of 4? And he's like, well, how am I ever going to maintain my reputation as a medical worker? And that is straight out of the Next Generation episode. What was that? Relics, I think it was called, with Scotty. And he says that stuff to Geordi. And I had no idea that he had said it to Kirk himself in Star Trek 3. I didn't remember that. I thought that was just something he was saying to Geordi. I thought it was a secret he had kept from Kirk. But he actually spilled the beans here. I forgot that. Then we get a scene with the Klingons. And this is the debut of a lot of things. It's not the debut of the new look Klingons or the Klingon language. Those things were debuted in the motion picture in that pointless introduction scene of that film. But what we do get the debut of is the Bird of Prey, the Targ, and that silver armor, that uniform that they would wear all throughout the Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. That is all debuted here. And I would say overall that I feel that this film is truly the birth of the Klingons as we would come to know them in the Next Generation and Deep Space Nine and moving forward. I think that this is really the origin of those Klingons, and I will talk about that as I go through the film. I would say overall they kind of feel to me as sort of a combination of the Next Generation Klingons and kind of the version of the Klingons that Kang led in the Day of the Dove in the original series, season 3, which was I believe the last, at least major Klingon episode. I think Klingons appeared here and there. We had that stupid Kahless appearing with Abraham Lincoln. But I think their last major appearance was Day of the Dove, and kind of reminded me of those Klingons combined with the Next Generation Klingons. But I feel like it's the birth of the Next Generation Klingons. And it's very strange to me that Christopher Lloyd is the first true Klingon commander in Star Trek. Christopher Lloyd. And at this point in time, this is a year before Back to the Future. He was known mostly from Taxi. And I mentioned this when I did my Back to the Future review, that when I saw Back to the Future, I was like, oh, hey, he's the Klingon commander. I knew he was from Taxi because my parents watched Taxi. I wouldn't watch Taxi until years later. But I knew Christopher Lloyd first and foremost from this film, and it's just crazy to me that he is the first true Klingon commander in Star Trek lore. He did a good job, though. Anyways, moving on, now we get back to this space dock, and we have the Excelsior scene. I remember thinking that the Excelsior is this fancy new ship. Now we have the Excelsior class. We see it reappearing even in Star Trek Picard. It's like a classic class of starship now, and here's the debut. And this is where Scotty has another line. This is a weird line where he's like, if my grandmother had wheels, she'd be a wagon. Yeah, if your grandmother had wheels, what does that mean? Scotty says the weirdest thing sometimes. I don't understand what that means. Anyways, this is when Chekhov picks up a life form reading in Spock's quarters, even though it was locked. No one was allowed to go in there. I don't know why they have to lock Spock's quarter and forbid people from going in there, but whatever. It's McCoy. Then they give you that Spock fake out. Help me, Jim. Climb the steps of Mount Solea. And it's in Spock's voice. I swear it's Leonard Nimoy actually doing the voice. I don't really get how McCoy becomes so Vulcan. Like he just becomes Spock, becomes so Vulcan. I find the whole thing kind of silly. This whole Katra thing and all of this stuff, and I'll talk about it a little bit more in the Sarek scene in a minute, but I feel like that was all made up for this movie just so they could bring Spock back to life. Anyways, they get back to Starfleet. They meet with, I guess he's called the Commander of Starfleet. I was a little confused at first. I thought he was Commander in rank, but he's Admiral in rank, but he is the Commander of Starfleet. Have we seen that anywhere else? I feel like this is a thing that's unique to this film. The Commander of Starfleet? I don't know. Anyways, so he's telling them that the Enterprise is going to be retired, and Scotty's been asked to go help get the Excelsior all up to speed. Kirk asked if he could go back to Genesis and is refused. I was unclear on why he was asking that question at this point. We don't know anything about McCoy yet. He knows McCoy's acting weird, but he doesn't know he's supposed to go back and or go to Vulcan. Actually, he doesn't know anything about any of that stuff at this point, so I don't know why he was asking to go back to Genesis. Then we find out Genesis has to be kept under wraps and all of that stuff in there. Okay, then we go over to a scene with the Klingons watching some home movies. They are watching the film that they dramatically got from that ship that they had to destroy, even though I guess Krug's girlfriend was on it. Anyway, they're watching this movie, and it's Kirk explaining the Genesis project. It's Kirk now, not Dr. Marcus. I don't know when Kirk had time to film this. See, this is where the timeline is all messed up again. So David and Savick had time to go to the Grissom, and Kirk had time to make a little movie. Like, I think it's just because the original Genesis film was Dr. Marcus, Carol Marcus, that is, not David, and she is not in this movie, and Kirk is in this movie, and it was a way to connect Krug to Kirk, to see Kirk talking about Genesis, but I don't know when he had time to make this movie anyways. So they're watching this, and Krug keeps asking each of the two Klingons who are with him, "What do you think of this? What do you think?" And then one Klingon goes, "Great power." And I said, "Comes great responsibility." Like, I can't hear great power and not say with great power comes great responsibility. That's just where my brain goes. Anyways, different franchise. Moving on. So then we see Savick and David on the Grissom, and the captain who has to do everything by the book. And Savick, I'm sorry, but this is one of the most jarring casting changes in the history of film and television. Like, Robin Curtis Savick is absolutely nothing remotely like Kirstie Alley Savick. They couldn't have picked an actress that is any more different than Kirstie Alley than Robin Curtis. Like, there's no way that I can buy it's the same person. You may as well have just said it was a different character. To be perfectly honest, she's so different. Although it wouldn't have worked to say she was a different character because she needs to have the knowledge of Savick. But my goodness, I have a hard time buying this is the same person as in Star Trek 2. So anyways, we then cut over to a scene with Kirk hanging out with some of his crewmates. They're all wearing these cheesy 80s outfits. Kirk has got the funkiest looking leisure suit I've ever seen. It's really funny. And then this is when Sarek comes in. And yeah, I don't really get any of this stuff out of context. of anything else. I mean, it was definitely just a cheap way to get Spock back to life. Like, Katra, it is the Vulcan way. No, it's not. Even when they get there at the end of the movie, the priestess is like, "Oh, we haven't done that in 1,000 years." So it's not the Vulcan way. Just making this up to bring Spock back to life. But whatever. Um, yeah. So, anyways, like Sarek is thinking Kirk has the Katra. Then they go and they watch the little home movie again. It's a VCR tape, VHS tape, in the 23rd century, because they're rewinding it and it goes. There's a lot of 80s technology all throughout this movie. It makes me laugh because, the original series had 60s technology, and the films they have 80s technology, and it just cracks me up. So anyway, they're watching the little film, and then that's when they discover the remember thing that it was actually McCoy who has the Katra. I feel like Kirk should have thought about that because McCoy was all like, "Jim, why did you leave me on planet Genesis?" Talking like Spock, like. I don't know. It seems like Kirk was pretty dumb there, not putting two and two together. But whatever. They figure it out. Then we have a scene of McCoy going to the bar and meeting that weird alien with the big ears. And I forgot all about the scene, except that my brother quotes it all the time. Otherwise, boggin' no. I forgot about this. But McCoy is just too obvious talking about Genesis really loudly, gets arrested by the security dude, gets thrown into the brig. And then we get one of my favorite scenes when I was a kid, the whole Kirk and Sulu and Chekhov going in and breaking McCoy out of jail. And my favorite part when I was a little kid was that big Starfleet guard dude calling Sulu tiny. This guy works for Starfleet, really? Is that Gene Roddenberry's vision that an asshole like that would be working for Starfleet? I don't know. But anyways, it works for the scene. Call Sulu tiny, and Sulu, totally kicks his ass and goes, "Don't call me tiny." I loved that so much when I was a little kid. Great scene. Another great scene with Ahura and that very 1980s Starfleet lieutenant who she makes go into the closet. I always love these scenes too. I love seeing the crew go rogue. I loved it as a kid, and I enjoy seeing it now. Really a lot of fun. Okay, then we go back to the Genesis planet, spend some time with Saavik and David, and this is when they discover that Spock's body has been regenerated, and now he's a little kid, and he's growing really quickly, and the planet is starting to fall apart, and all of that stuff. Christopher Lloyd, Commander Krug, and his bird of prey uncloak and destroy the Grissom because it's just a science vessel. It's not prepared to fight the Klingons. Stranding David and Saavik on the planet. And this is when we get the reveal that the reason why Genesis is falling apart, why the planet is falling apart, is because David used a shortcut. He used something called proto-matter that he said solved certain problems. And it was kind of a shortcut, and it would have taken years if he hadn't done that. And this shows how much he is like his father, as Saavik points out. So that's why you needed to have Saavik be the same character, because you needed to have that memory. Yeah, you're just like your father, but it's hard to buy that this is the same character. Anyways, this is a thing that was definitely retconned in. I do not believe that they thought of that in Star Trek 2. However, it works really well. It fits in well, and I really like that they show here that David is like Kirk and that he takes shortcuts. I really like this, actually. What I did not like is the pointless Punfar scene with Saavik and Spock. Why didn't Spock try to hump her if he's going through Punfar? I didn't get that, but I don't know. Star Trek always has to try to put Punfar in there somewhere. To be fair, I think this is only the second time they had Punfar after Amok time, but like Voyager had it like 3 times, and Enterprise did it. Like Star Trek loves them some Poonfar. Pointless scene in my opinion. Anyways, so the Klingons capture them. Krug is pretty dumb. He sees the planet falling apart around him, and he doesn't believe the Genesis is a failure. He's asking for information. She won't give it to him. He's like, well, then I hope pain is something you enjoy. Then, the Enterprise shows up. They're trying to contact the Grissom. And this is a line that, for some reason, I've always quoted a lot throughout my life. Grissom, this is Enterprise. Do you read? Grissom. Now, when their scanners detect that Grissom is not there, so why are they trying to contact the ship that their scanners would tell them is not there? But whatever. Anyways, once the Enterprise arrives, the Klingons call Christopher Lloyd, Commander Krug, and he beams back up. And this is where we get the big exciting scene. Maybe not quite on par with the Star Trek II action sequences, which I thought were just top notch. But this is pretty good. This is a pretty good action scene. So I love how Kirk outsmarts the Klingons just like he outsmarted Khan, and is able to get the better of them initially. And R.I.P. Targ. Why did they have to go and kill off the Targ? What did the Targ do wrong? Honestly, it's just a pet. So the poor Targ dies, and Christopher Lloyd is sad that his pet Targ has died. But as it turns out, the Enterprise is bluffing. Kirk is bluffing because the Enterprise is not really prepared for combat, as Scotty points out. I didn't expect to take us into combat. So Kirk tries to bluff, but Krug is pretty smart too. He's quite a lot smarter than Khan, if I'm being perfectly honest, when it comes to this kind of thing, because he doesn't have that revenge, lust for revenge that Khan had. So he threatens to kill the prisoners down on the planet. Kirk does not comply. Kirk says that he will comply, but he says, well, I'm going to kill one anyways. And this is when they try to kill Savick, actually, but David intervenes and he gets killed. And this is where we get the dramatic scene. You Klingon bastard! You killed my son! And when I was a teenager, there was a local radio station that had a song called "You Klingon Bastard, You Killed My Son." I don't know if it was a national thing or if it was only my local radio station. It was a Washington, D.C. radio station. You Klingon bastard, you killed my son. And now it's time to overact, you Klingon. Anyways, one of the most famous William Shatner overacting scenes after the one that I also reenacted for Star Trek II. But yeah, Kirk is being a little melodramatic, don't you think? I mean, he barely knew the guy. He met him 3 times. He had like 3 conversations with him, and 2 of them weren't very pleasant. I know it's his son. I mean, I get it. He has this personal connection just because it is his son, even though if he only had 3 conversations with him in his life. That's kind of a shitty thing to happen for the Klingons to just kill him like that. I get it. I'm not saying that he shouldn't react in any way or that he shouldn't be upset by it. He should be, but really falling off his chair and going, "You Klingon bastard!" First of all, he's a Starfleet captain. He's seen many people die. Many red shirts, actually, and quite frankly, he probably knew some of those red shirts better than he knew David. And he's got to get his shit together. I'm sorry. I was just being melodramatic there. But whatever, it raises the stakes. You know, Kirk wants to get revenge and all that stuff. So, whatever. After that, Krug knows he has Kirk by the balls. He knows he's got him right where he wants him. He's going to send the boarding crew over, and one of the Klingons, I forget what he says to Krug. He says something where he's doubting that plan, and Commander Krug goes, "We are Klingons!" And that's Next Generation stuff right there. The "We are Klingon" stuff, that is something that they would take in Next Generation and they would run with that. That whole "We are Klingons! We are warriors!" They don't get into the warrior stuff yet, or at least not that terminology, but I think it was birthed here. This is where it starts. So right here in this film, right here in this scene. So it's really fascinating for me as a lifelong Next Generation and Deep Space Nine fan to kind of go back and watch this film for the first time in a long time and really examine the birth of the modern day Klingons in this film. It was really fun. So then we get the Destruct Sequence. Remember when putting the ship on self-destruct was this long, complicated thing where you have 3 different command level officers having to spout out a long string of numbers, and there's a lot of fail-safes here. This is actually how the self-destruct should be. It should be like this, but here we are now in Star Trek Picard, where Admiral Picard can just come on the bridge and say, "Computer, auto self-destruct." Okay, 10, 9, 8. It should really take a lot more than that. I think that Star Trek 3 actually did that right. It should be 3 command level officers spouting out a long string of numbers. And the Next Generation, it goes down to 2 command level officers. And then in Picard, it's just one admiral can just go. What if Picard had dementia? It's just like, "Computer, self-destruct." Okay, Admiral, 10, 9. Anyways, Picard is a different topic. I cover that weekly, so you should check my videos out for that. Anyways, I always love the trick that Kirk pulls on the Klingons, but I think that one Klingon who goes over there is really stupid. How can he be so dumb? Like, seriously, how is he so dumb? I mean, I get that maybe it's a different language and he doesn't understand that those are numbers being counted down, but Krug knew. He's like, "Oh, there's this strange voice. I don't get it." It's like 10, 9, 8, and Krug is like, "Get out of there! Get out of there!" I still think that's the world's dumbest Klingon. I don't understand why he was so stupid. And I've always thought that since I was a little kid. I never got that. Moving on, Kirk and his crew have beamed down to the Genesis planet and they meet up with Saavik and young Spock, who still is not talking. And Saavik explains to Kirk that Spock's aging is tied into what's going on with the planet, the rest of this stuff. Does that make sense? I don't know. I don't really think it does. It's just like, "Oh, let's just say something. We want Spock to come back to life. Let's just throw this in there. That's fine. Whatever." So then Kirk's plan is to try to get up to the Klingon ship and I guess take it over so they can get off this planet that's about to be destroyed. And he asks Krug to beam them up. Instead, Krug beams down. And then he does beam up everybody except for Kirk and the young Spock. And this shows what a dick Krug is, because Kirk was like, "You should beam up the Vulcan." He's like, "No." Well, why not? "Because you wish it." Like, what a dick. So, really setting him up as the true villain of the film. And Kirk is explaining to him, "If we don't help each other, we'll die here." And then Krug has another true Klingon line. He says, "Perfect! Then that's the way it shall be." Another way of saying that, "Today is a good day to die." Of course, they hadn't come up with that line yet, but it's kind of the same thing. See how this is kind of the birth of the Next Generation Klingons? Then that's the way it shall be. And then Kirk and Krug get into this classic TOS Kirk fight, where he does what I call the Kirk maneuver. And that thing he does where he puts his 2 fists together like this and goes, "Ugh. Like that's his one move. He goes from the side and gets them in the ribs, or gets them over the back. He did that all the time in the original series. that's the fight that they get into. Here, meanwhile, the ground is falling apart. There's lightning and thunder. Trees are falling over. It's very dramatic. And then we get what I would say is the even more classic Kirk line than "You Klingon bastards" in my mind. This is the one that stuck with me even more throughout my life. That I would always quote this and always remember this, as when Krug is hanging off the side of the cliff. Kirk actually tries to help him at first, and Krug tries to pull him down. So then that's when Kirk goes, "I have had enough of you." See, that one actually stuck with me more than Klingon Bastard, if I'm being honest. It wasn't until I heard that song on the local radio station that I started really making fun of that line. The "I have had enough of you." Now that's classic stuff right there. Then Kirk asks to be beamed up in Klingon. Where did he learn Klingon? Maybe he just heard Krug say that before. I don't know. And of course, the ground dramatically falls down the instant they beam up, because of course it has to do that. Kirk gets up there, and apparently there's only one Klingon one left on the ship. And his crew has taken this Klingon captive. And here's another Next Generation Klingon thing, where this Klingon says, "I don't deserve to live," and Kirk goes, "Fine, I'll kill you later." Later he's like, "I thought you said you were going to kill me," and it's like, "I lied." But that he doesn't use the word dishonor or "I must die with honor" or anything like that. But same concept. This is the birth of the Next Generation Klingons here, because they never did shit like this in the original series. So this is definitely the genesis, as it were, of the Klingons wanting to die with honor and that sort of thing. Even though he doesn't use the term honor yet, that would be a Next Generation thing, but it starts here. So then they go to Vulcan, and Uhura is there so that she can be there for Star Trek 4 because she needs to be with them. And I like the look of Vulcan a lot better than Amok Time. I think this is more what they probably wanted Vulcan to look like. Vulcan always has, a lot of volcanic imagery, obviously because it's called Vulcan. But I think Amok Time tried to convey that, but they had no budget. So I think they were able to do that effectively here. And then we go through the whole ceremony, where McCoy has to step up and get the Katra taken out and all of that stuff. And then Spock is back to life again. And here's another line that I always had in my head all throughout my childhood and adulthood. "Ship out of danger? Yes, Spock! You saved the ship! You saved us all!" Yeah, I don't know why that one stuck with me. "You saved the ship. You saved us all." Yeah, now Spock is back, and now we can get into Star Trek 4. So before I get into Star Trek 4, which will be next month, let me go ahead and give my rating for Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. So a 1 is the lowest possible score, 10 is the highest possible score, and for Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, I'm going to give it a 7. A fun movie, does not deserve to be lumped in with Star Trek 5, which is an awful film, or Star Trek the Motion Picture, which is barely better than awful. It's a better film than those, absolutely. But it still has its issues. It still has its quirks. It still, is basically a 2-hour long excuse to bring Spock back to life. But as I said at the top, it's a 2-hour excuse to bring Spock back to life that I really enjoy. So I am giving Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, a 7 out of 10. Now that does it for my review for Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock. Join me next month as I will review Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home. otherwise known as, the one with the whales. This is the one with the whales. Also, please join me weekly for my reviews of Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard. And if you have not, please subscribe. And don't forget to like this video. And I will see you really soon.